Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Cúna, Sethahul. Okay, I'm going to start proceedings. Welcome, everyone, and welcome everyone who's joined us back online again. Without further ado, and before we go to any of the proceedings for the afternoon, I would like to warmly welcome our Minister for Further Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, James Lawless, TD. We're delighted you're here, not just to give us our closing remarks and closing speech, but you're going to listen to all our wonderful, I suppose, takeaway messages, our summaries of our findings across France and Ireland and Germany today. So we're delighted you're here. So welcome, and welcome to your wonderful team as well, who've been very supportive throughout the day. Welcome everyone online. We're going to kick off the session. We're going to first hear a summary of our parallel sessions from our fantastic rapporteurs, and bearing in mind 2 of them have just literally come out of a session, so we'll go easy on them. We're letting them speak third and fourth. I'm going to introduce everyone now, and I feel privileged to be able to sit here with 4 people who are incredibly strong advocates of our European University Alliances. They're fantastic people to work with, as are their teams and all of you in the room. And it's just it's a great day to have everyone join together. So firstly, let me introduce you to Pamela, who stepped in at the last minute as well, might I add. So thank you, Pamela. Pamela is head of Enlight Alliance, and she's in the office of the VP for International in University of Galway. Doris Alexander, Associate Director of European Engagement, Trinity College Dublin, has joined us, and also recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Irma Award. She received that this week, so congratulations well done to Doris. Next, we have Siobhan Rudden, who is represented the EU Connexus project, and she's Institutional Coordinator for South East Technological University. And last, but by no means least, we have Barry Dignam, who's Vice Dean of the European University, and he's Programme Director, Film EU, in the Institute of Art, Design and Technology. So welcome all of you. We're going to hear from each of our wonderful rapporteurs today, who had a huge job in collating all the key messages. So we have about 10 minutes each, guys, I think. So I'm going to give the floor. We all agreed that from listening to a lot of the sessions today, there are some similar key messages coming out of all the sessions. So we've agreed not to try not to be too repetitive, but come up with some unique messaging. So I'm going to kick off with Pamela. Pamela led on the session, was rapporteur for the session, University Alliances in Transition, Balancing Innovation, Skills Needs and Academic Excellence. So over to you, Pamela.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everyone. So, as Jen said, I got the great job being the rapporteur on alliances and in transition, which had 2 key questions: one focusing on skills, and one on academic excellence. And there was input from 4 alliances: Arcus, Uni Europa, Charma EU, and Ingenium. And as Jen said, I'm from Enlight, and our French partners are University of Bordeaux, and our German partners are University of Göttingen. So one of the key questions on panel 1 were, what are the current and future skills needs, and who defines them? And the panel started out by looking at the Irish context, looking at regional skill fora and national skills bulletins, which give a common understanding of the gaps, the national context. We also looked at sectoral needs and how these are managed by various different bodies, and they're very much linked to the overall notion of the union of skills that Suzanne Consett talked us through this morning in the plenary, and the union of skills and the need to help people stay ahead in a rapidly changing world. One of the key messages that came out on skills was the notion that if they fall into 3 pillars: what the public need, which is an immediate need; what the employers need, which is short to medium term; and the universities and the alliances are identifying future gaps and putting solutions in place to meet these future needs. So they have a key role there. EU alliances in particular have a key role, and the added value here is being innovative and creative and imagining better futures. And just going back to the plenary, this is linked to Jen's earlier comment that alliances are finding a new way of delivering, governing and imagining education. And one of our colleagues from Ingenium, Rector Beck, talked about the notion of skills, and we imply that there's a difference between knowledge and skills. And she felt that the lines are now being blurred. And we would like to imagine a future in 10 to 15 years' time where we won't talk about the difference between knowledge and skills. And the panel felt that alliances are providing a key foundation for this. Then moving on to academic excellence, and what does that mean in the alliance context? The panel members felt that excellence is a given, and how it's measured should be clear and transparent. But the alliance experience is that it's different to convey this across cultures. Alliances fundamentally, alliance enables trust between partners on academic excellence. And excellence within alliances is the provision of a platform, this unique platform for experimentation. And the ask from the panel was that we need another 5 to 10 years of funding for the alliances because Europe cannot afford not to support it. Alliances are deliberately coming together to challenge systems and question processes, and it's a really powerful knowledge exchange. One of the things that came out of the panel was that the alliances, with 64 alliances, it gives over 500 rectors the chance to knowledge share. So that's really powerful. But not only that, it also gives colleagues on all levels and all layers underneath that the chance to knowledge share and share best practice. So that is, it's really powerful, and that's certainly been our experience in Enlight. So this has had a very positive impact, and it's highlighted the need for a robust, so alliances have had a very positive impact on knowledge sharing. And what it does is I think there's a theme across all of the panels today that it's highlighted the need for a robust funding model, as outlined in the letter report, to continue this privileged and very effective platform for experimentation. So excellence is providing a place for talent, to nurture talent, and Europe needs this talent to tackle societal challenges and improve the international competitiveness of higher education. And I'll finish just by saying that this is something that came out of the plenary earlier. The alliances the European University Alliances have offered greater benefits than any other previous cooperation. So thank you. I'll finish it there.
Thank you, Pamela. Excellent. And just to remind you all of these notes and feedback are going to feed into a report that we plan on producing following this conference. So lots of key actions, and we'll capture all of this, which is excellent. So now Doris is our next rapporteur, and Doris was rapporteur for panel 2, which was titled How European Alliances Can Contribute to the Challenges of Research, Competitiveness and Sovereignty. Over to you, Doris.
Thank you very much. So again, we had contribution from 4 alliances: ECIU, Enlight, IGLU and EU2+. So we heard mention just there of the letter report. Our panel, I suppose, was a little bit more focused on the Mario Draghi report, and we know how that's influencing a lot of EU policy at the moment. So in light of this increased emphasis on competitiveness, we want to more fully understand how the European University Alliances can and do contribute to European competitiveness and sovereignty, but also to societal challenges, because that's also very necessary to underpin competitiveness, to international collaboration and the link to the EU Global Gateway, and what would be needed to enable the alliances to do more. So I'm going to try to call out some of the touch points and reflections, and bear in mind I won't be able to actually be completely comprehensive, but hopefully this will be useful for you. I think one of the overarching things is we absolutely felt that research and innovation must be included as a possible mission to be supported within alliances. It is part and parcel of what universities do, and it is important also to enable research-informed education as well. We were trying to think a little bit, I suppose, outside the box and looking at research in the first instance and saying, yes, OK, you can't have a European University Alliance without research. How do you start the process? Some of us obviously secured some Horizon funding, some did not. But it was deemed really important to have some sort of framework of support to enable that integrated framework of support to enable our researchers to come together. So that's the first piece, which we kind of called capacity building. And that is required as the first step to enable our researchers to come together to work on elements which then focus and enable competitiveness and sovereignty. So fostering that environment that researchers can then plan to work to contribute to global and societal challenges. We have indicated, we have been asked by a lot of policymakers to do a lot. In fact, every time a policy a new policy is outlined, we seem to be named as being an enabler to help to deliver that. And we can absolutely push boundaries. But at the moment, particularly in relation to research and innovation, we really only have our institutional funding to try to deliver out. And, it's also variable. Obviously, we come from different countries and the diversity of funding across our institutions and indeed nationally does add to the challenges in that respective. What we do feel, and I call it out again later, is that something that is really perhaps unique to the European University Alliances is our diversity. We are diverse both in terms of the thematic areas or the subject matter in which our alliances address, but we're also diverse in terms of promoting diversity and inclusion within each of our alliances. And that is something that is so important in terms of the changing geopolitical climate at the moment. Competitiveness we tend to often think of as engagement with industry. And it was acknowledged that most alliances have industrial perhaps partners on advisory boards and that all universities are engaging with industry. But that being in an alliance can help to elevate this engagement because we can bring together those stakeholders to enable them to access a broader network. So whether you're at a local level, a regional level, a national level, you can bring those industrial partners right through to a broader European ecosystem. And that is considered to be really attractive to industry. And that's something that is unique and is enabled by the high level of trust that has developed within our alliances. Another element, I suppose, was mentioned at the last session is that a lot of the alliances, most of the alliances have sustainability incorporated into what we do. Obviously, as part of the green and digital transition, digitisation is another area that we need to address. And here too, the alliances can really play a unique role because we need to have what's coined techno-diversity. So that's where alliances can play a key role in bringing social democracy and values into the technological innovation, embedding European values into all that we do from a technological progress standpoint. And again, I think that makes Europe and the alliances really make a very unique approach to competitiveness. Trust came up, I think, across all sessions and came up within our session. We trust each other enough to broaden our relationships, be they with industry, to share that across our ecosystem, to introduce industries that we engage with to each other. That's really important. But so too is the connection with civil society, engaging with citizens as part of citizen science, engaging with and trying to help to deliver out on the Sustainable Development Goals and maximising societal impact. And again, that can be enabled by developing and enabling a broader ecosystem. What was also mentioned as well, and I think this is it's really nice, and I think it's a growing area, is that alliances are actually cooperating and working with each other as well. So we have intra-alliance collaboration, where alliances are reaching out across each other to engage in communities of practice, to enable, again, an even broader ecosystem. And we're engaging beyond alliances. So we're helping to transform the broader higher education institution. Within Ireland, I think we're very fortunate in that all our universities are in an alliance, and now the RCSI is associated with one. But that's not the case across all of Europe. We feel that a cultural shift, which has been outlined really within the Draghi report, can be achieved by a group of universities, providing we can go beyond this project cycle of funding. You know, you have 3 years, but then you don't know what's going to happen, and maybe things all fall apart. So to have that long-term trust, to really open up your ecosystem to others, so that you're working again and again and again, we do need to have, I suppose, a better framework of longer-term support in investment. The alliances have a responsibility, and this is linked to the union of skills, both where we are developing and enabling students with the correct graduate skills, but we're also enabling our own researchers in terms of researcher career development. And we can support early career development, which includes particularly interdisciplinarity, because all the alliances are working in an interdisciplinary perspective, by enabling them to access bigger networks of disciplines to grow their networks, but also in terms of training, that we can develop communities of practice so that you can be trained across a group of universities rather than just within your own university as well. And this broader ecosystem, this engagement, also extends to international strategies and the EU's global gateway. So we said, yes, finding international dimension of alliance is really important, of interest to a lot of us, but finding those calls and means to enable that to happen is quite challenging on both sides, actually, as well, not just within the EU, but often with those we're trying to engage with. But we do want to point out we're not a closed club. It is an opportunity to network, as was coined, with friends of my friends. And international organisations are very interested in engaging with alliances. So I think we're seeing a shift beyond bilateral engagement with international organisations to their wanting to engage with alliances in a European perspective, perhaps even to think about copying an alliance perspective. And I think there we have a great bandwidth to develop new partnerships with countries outside of the European Union that share our values. So the existence of our alliances make us very attractive to international partners. So overall, in terms of linking to competitiveness, that collaboration, which is multi-layered and complementary, presenting Europe as a unified on one hand, but diverse actor on the other hand, I think is important. So moving to conclusions and next steps. One of the things that was pointed out, particularly I think within the Irish perspective, we have the Science Foundation Ireland in the past, now Research Ireland, research institutions, is what can we do to think about harnessing what we have nationally? How can we leverage that to create an even more international or European perspective? And I do have to say, and it comes back to it, and I'm sure every politician is fed up listening to us saying it, we do need a more sustainable funding model that aligns institutional, national and European level funding in a way that makes better use of the funding as well, in an integrated, unified way, rather than having to jigsaw pieces of funding together, and really allowing us to deliver out on our ambition. And in turn, helping us to help Europe to close the innovation gap. We really believe the alliances can play a key role in this. And we looked at things like the LabX alignment, we looked at things like KICS, and I think the LabX approach that some of you may be familiar with, there would be a difficulty in taking that on board at the moment because the alliances are in existence, and then to try to superimpose something on it could be quite difficult, but I would come back to the idea of harnessing what we already do in terms of research institutions, both within Ireland but also within other countries as well. Can we bring those into the fold? And secondly, as I've previously mentioned, trying to develop that specific framework of support to bring together our researchers, so like trying to create a kick for alliances in that regard. So whether
Thank you,
linkage,
Doris.
I'm just finishing up, last sentence. So whether linkage with industry, citizens, international organisations, or indeed with other alliances, we can harness what each of us are doing separately within our university members, sometimes on a bilateral basis, and create broader ecosystems through that trusted approach, which I think will better respond to the needs of Europe, to create a European value-based approach to competitiveness and sovereignty, and that would be a uniquely European value basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Excellent summary. I hope Siobhan and Barry will forgive me, as you've been writing your emails there. You haven't been making your notes at all. We're running out of time. We started a little bit late, so to accommodate our minister as well, if we could keep it to 5 minutes each, if that's okay, because we are going to capture everything in our final document as well. So over to you, Siobhan.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, given that we finished the session, I'd say about 5 minutes before we started this session, I've never been happier to only have 5 minutes to do the rapporteur. You can read it afterwards in full once we've had time to digest. But the panel that I was working with, was rapporteur for, was Innovation, Ecosystem Engagement and Industry Collaboration. And it was, the ecosystem was considered from different perspectives, from local, regional, national, the European ecosystem, within our own alliances, and of course within our own institutions, our own institutional ecosystems, where we reach out to our learners, our researchers, professionals, professional staff and beyond. The panel was slightly different to the other panels in that each of the panelists, or each panelist grouping from their respective alliance, represented presented at the start. They presented a brief outline of their own alliance and their thematic focus. So that was RUN EU, which is the Regional University Network, Film EU, which focuses on film and creative sectors and their contribution to the future of Europe. EU Green, the regionally anchored gateway to sustainability, and Unique, focus on cities in post-industrial transition. I myself am from EU Connexus, which is smart urban coastal sustainability, so I think you can see a thread there between co-creation, communities, regions and sustainability. What followed then was an exchange which focused on the perspectives of the alliances as they engaged in their respective regions and their own ecosystems. From this then, the presentations, a few key words arose across it: sustainability, creativity, co-creation, cities, regions, society, the much-loved quadruple and even more loved quintuple helix approaches to engagement. So in terms of the different topics that came up, one of them was how do we ensure that alliances are co-creational spaces? And the consensus was that collaboration, thinking and discussing together in a thought forum was key for alliances. Industry representation was critical in terms of developing joint degrees and joint micro-credentials and offerings, knowing the value proposition, knowing the value that we create to our industry within our regions. Local government and municipalities were also discussed across different topics in terms of being incredibly important to in being involved in the region, setting the policy at local and regional level and indeed national level, funding for local initiatives, living labs, city forums, creative projects. And then looking at the challenges of regional ecosystem engagement approach. Apologies now, I just have to, yes. Are they different for different alliances? For example, it was discussed quite a bit that the technological universities here in Ireland are mandated under legislation to support the regions, and that other universities not necessarily in Ireland, across anywhere in Europe, may have been formed under different frameworks, and also even in different eras, different centuries, for example. So wouldn't necessarily have that situation. It was mentioned that we are unique, or that the TU sector is unique as a regional engagement space. But other universities may not have that direct remit. However, overall, universities within alliances are outward facing and focused on supporting their surrounding regions. Another topic was mentioned as well about the wider interpretation of regional ecosystem, to consider all of Europe as exactly that. So the need to look at Europe as a whole, and to raise it higher. So you have your local, regional, national and European ecosystems that the alliances feed into. I'll just move on along briefly. In terms of, which is very pressing, the current geopolitical environment, what challenges exist. I will finish up soon, I promise, Jen. What challenges exist? I think this is probably the quite important one, financially and others. So the current geopolitical environment is emergent to others that are long-standing, which was a point made. Ecological, migration, societal, poverty, etc. They're all crises that we're dealing with long before, say, December or January of this year. Geopolitical changes are also internal to Europe, not just the wider world, and that the world is looking to Europe for leadership, and the alliances can magnify European values. So they're worth championing in the current situation: transnationality, critical thinking, welcoming immigrants, safe research spaces for our academics and our researchers. We have to stand fast and move forward, but also be steadfast to our values, and I think that's really important. Values came up quite a bit, and to bring the values within our alliances, but also between all 65 alliances. There's an awful lot more which I won't go into right now, but I will mention that the community ecosystem was mentioned quite a bit in terms of working with NGOs, working with local schools, communities, societal engagement, and it's quite clear that the alliances, while we're developing joint programs and micro-credentials and engaging in research, we are out there in our communities as well, in terms of citizen science and citizen engagement, and that our students, our learners within our alliances, are incredibly important to communicating the benefits of the alliances. It's the lived experience of the student who goes on a mobility or takes a micro-credential or has an experience through the alliances, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Siobhan. I'm sorry to rush you. Barry, you have 30 seconds. I'm sure we'll be allowed a couple of minutes because we started late, but I know you'll bring it home for us. Thank you.
I'll bring it quick, but I won't be 30 seconds considering this is the one around students, so we need to make sure the voice is heard. So thanks, everyone. Here's a quick recap. It was a really interesting discussion around how European University Alliances can make mobility and student engagement more inclusive and more meaningful for all of our students. So we had contributions from Emerge, from EU Connexus. I get this one is hard for me, UGLO, and DAAD, the German agency. But most importantly, we had interventions from student representatives, and the panel was moderated exceptionally well by a couple of our articulate student leaders from UCC. So I think in mobility itself, physical experiences were widely seen as paramount. We learned over COVID that it's incredibly challenging to meet just virtually, and nothing really beats face-to-face. So I think everybody agreed that we should prioritise physical mobility where we can. Students and staff agree that nothing replaces that unique experience of being there in person, learning about each other and learning from each other. But of course, there's limited budgets and very large ambitions. So alliances need to widen participation, and that means embracing blended and virtual formats as real and viable alternatives. So we heard about some successful examples, which I won't have time to go into now, but around homework with in-person intensive sessions towards the end, and how the structure motivates participation, so how we can build that in. And I'll do some notes that can elaborate on that. BIPs and blended mobilities, where students work together in advance, is a kind of a carrot of mobility at the end as a goal, can be really helpful. I think we also felt that we need to be honest. Virtual mobility just in and of its own is a hard sell. So we need to underline the need to make it really easy, to remove micro barriers, to provide timely info, to offer support up front, especially financial supports up front and not just reimbursed later. And particularly when it comes to reaching those who haven't engaged before. Peer-to-peer models work really well. Student ambassadors, embedding mobility in the curriculum, not treating it as an optional extra, are key strategies. And that we need to remember that mobility may be the first time that somebody has travelled outside of the country. On inclusion and identity, we didn't shy away from tough questions. How do we involve all students, not just the confident middle-class few? The answer, meet students where they are. So that means peer mentorship for first-time travellers, paid ambassador roles, accessible formats like short-term and localised activities, creating physical and hybrid spaces for intercultural exchange. One of the interesting things was mobility top-ups as an idea, where you fund or where you tailor certain bits of extra top-up mobilities or mobility activity, particularly to particular types of people. And came up around how important it is to have first-generation learners on mobility, that they have specific requirements, but if cohesion is the idea behind it all, that it's pretty critical. We also touched on governance, how to make students feel like they're partners, not just participants. So several alliances are working to normalise student roles in boards, decision makings and quality assurance processes. As one speaker put it, if students vote, people have to listen, even if they don't agree. So essentially democratic education in action. In some alliances, the students are given double votes, which I think is quite interesting. Timings, credits and recognition all matter too. Trying to line academic calendars is almost impossible, so we have to try and find other ways around it. Students are busy, BIPs clash with exams, micro-credentials still face resistance. But we have to think about the design, how we may implement things like mobility months, or gaps in the schedule that might happen, embedding mobilities within programs so it doesn't seem like an extra, creating stackable skill-based formats. Okay, we'll wrap it up really quickly. We heard about really engaging students professionally, so treat them not as participants but as partners. And we heard that alliances need to embed their alliance closely with their own institutions. You can never tell people enough. If that means cultural hubs or spaces, roadshows, visiting classrooms and telling the story in person to students and with students, and a good byproduct of that is you're continually teaching their lecturers as well about the alliance. And speaking of teachers, it came through really clearly that teachers matter, that we need to advocate, facilitate and embed alliance activity in daily academic life, and that it needs to be ongoing and relentless. And just before I finished, because I don't want to just leave it at the last, we talked about green mobility. And it's something that we all have to think about, but as it was stated, universities are carbon guzzlers. Mobility shouldn't be the first one to go. So there's lots of other things that we can do. It has to play a part, but we shouldn't put it on the front. So in short, we heard to celebrate physical mobility, but diversify the formats, to embed engagement in structures and syllabi, to empower students with agency, support and voice, and to bring staff on board as partners and advocates.
Thank you so much, Barry. Thank you to all our rapporteurs. And can we also thank you, all our moderators, all our speakers, everyone who participated. You were all amazing, fantastic. I love Delphine. She made me be the bad cop and rush you all. I'm really sorry about that. I think going forward, this is one of the most important sessions, and we need to allocate more time to this. So I'm really acknowledging that for the next time we do something like this. So while our wonderful rapporteurs are finishing off their emails there, I'm going to move us quickly, 4 minutes late, Delphine, not too bad, into our next session, which is exploring long-term vision of France, Germany and Ireland. We have 3 excellent speakers, but I'm going to firstly introduce our Donato Giorgio. He is director at the Directorate for European and International Relations, French Ministry for Higher Education Research. Unfortunately, Donato is not able to join us in person, but hopefully, with a click of my fingers, he's going to join us here on our screen. So fingers crossed, and then I'll announce our next speakers. So Donato, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Apparently, fingers are extremely powerful since they allow me to speak to you from quite afar. I'm really sorry that I'm not able to be with you in beautiful Ireland today, but unfortunately, previous commitments allow me only to be with you through technology in a remote way. So again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to tell you what is our perception of the universities alliances and what we think about what the future of the alliances should be. So let me go back to a more formal way of expressing myself, which is the speech that we have prepared with my team. That starts with thanking, of course, the Minister of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, dear Ambassador and colleague from the European Parliament Liaison Office, dear Presidents and Rectors, dear colleagues, distinguished friends, guests, and friends of the Universities Alliances. Let me begin by expressing my sincere thanks to the French Embassy in Ireland and all the institutions and individuals who have contributed to today's event. Looking back at 2017, when the President of the French Republic made his speech at the Sorbonne, it is nothing short of remarkable to see how far we have come. Seeing all of you gathered, united in purpose, across borders, languages, and disciplines, is a powerful reminder that Europe's ambitions for its universities were not only visionaries, but possible. This gathering seems to have been a truly enriching and meaningful exchange. Throughout the day, you have heard from university leaders, alliance representatives, students, policymakers, and experts who have all generously shared their insights, their experiences, and hopes for the future of the European University Alliances. It is therefore with both deep honor that I share a few thoughts on the road ahead. Since their inception in 2019, European University Alliances have proven to be more than a policy experiment. They are now a central pillar for the EU's higher education, research and innovation agenda. As I hope you have seen today, universities alliances have become key levers of Europe's strategic ambitions as described in political guidelines shared by President von der Leyen in Strasbourg. Indeed, they can play a pivotal role in designing and implementing European public and sectoral policies. They support the union of skills by aligning educational offerings with the evolving needs of our economies and societies. They contributed to the Clean Industrial Deal by fostering scientific innovation and training future leaders of the green transition. Through initiatives like the Competitiveness Compass, they can be instrumental to restore our competitiveness and unleash growth. Just a few examples. But in short, university alliances are living laboratories of Europe, spaces where we design not only new curriculum governance models, but also a renewed vision of what it means to be European. They should be seen as true incubators in support of the European Union's sectoral policy and of Europe as a whole. Now it is important to ensure that this momentum is sustainable and transformative. We need to consolidate the foundation of the universities' alliances around, we believe, 4 pillars. First one, student mobility, which remains a cornerstone of the European higher education era. It must be strengthened. We know that students who benefit from mobility are better prepared to deal with changes. They are more adaptable, better problem solvers, and become proactive European citizens, thereby making Europe more democratic and sovereign. So, we need to go beyond symbolic gestures. We must remove administrative, financial, and linguistic barriers as much as we can. And this is in particular important at a time where some, outside or inside Europe, are tempted by isolationism. We must reiterate that students' mobility should remain a major shared political goal. Then, research must be fully integrated into the logic of alliances. Teaching and research are not separate words. They must reinforce each other with interdisciplinary projects, joint infrastructures, and deeper cooperation with local ecosystems. In the same way, we also need stronger links between Erasmus+, Digital Europe, and Horizon Europe, and more coordinated national support. In France, thanks to the France 2030 investment plan, we were able to provide additional funding to higher education institutions that are part of European university alliances. These funds were primarily directed towards the research, and the results have been very encouraging. Third point, the time for joint European degrees has come. At the Choose Europe conference earlier this month, we discussed ways to attract more talent to the European Union. This joint European degree is a great opportunity to make higher education institutions more attractive and more competitive. We believe that it will also make it easier for people to move between jobs in Europe. France and Ireland, among others, have been advocating it since 2022. I leave it to you to judge whether this was a success or not by reading the latest Council resolution. In any case, now is the right time for voluntary countries to accelerate experimentation, make joint degrees more visible and recognizable, and strengthen mutual trust between national systems. The European degree is way more than a label. It is a symbol of shared quality, shared ambition, and shared sovereignty. These must be accompanied by the definition of a clear framework that supports the mutual recognition of diplomas awarded by partner higher education institutions. Those who wish to make progress on this issue must come together and move forward as one. Fourth point, digital campuses will be key to inclusion, sustainability, and innovation. The development of distance learning and the guarantee of equitable access to academic resources are also crucial. By creating interconnected, interoperable, and sovereign digital infrastructures, we can go beyond physical boundaries and offer flexible, high-quality learning for all. To achieve this, it is necessary to consolidate digital campuses and support the pedagogical and technological innovations that will help to democratize higher and further education across the continent. Dear colleagues, if we want to reach all these goals, we must also rethink our policy frameworks. I'm thinking particularly of governance and funding. The current model, driven by calls for proposals and projects, has helped us launch the initiative. But it's not enough for the next phase. We must move from short-term project logic to long-term investment logic. To do so, we believe that we need to be open to support structural changes affecting governance, international strategies, collective practices, and the way teams operate. We believe that a sustainable, predictable, simplified, and long-term funding, one that is better coordinated with all EU relevant instruments. National co-investment through dedicated policies and funding streams are necessary. Alliances cannot rely solely on European programs. They must become part of national and regional strategies. And finally, a shared agile governance. The Commission and Member States can provide direction and coherence, but the alliances must have autonomy, trust, and the space to experiment. Dear colleagues, dear friends, European Universities Alliances are, without doubt, one of the boldest and most promising innovation of recent EU policy. They prove that when we match ambition with cooperation, Europe do not just follow, it leads. 2025 is a turning point. With Ireland gearing up for the EU presidency next year, the new MFF just around the corner, and global threats to academic freedom rising, we are at a moment when choices do matter. We now have both the opportunity and the responsibility to write the second chapter for the European Universities Initiative. So let's seize it. Let's keep building bridges between disciplines, between institutions, between generations and culture. Thank you all for your attention, and please enjoy beautiful Ireland. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Donato. And it was wonderful that you joined us today, so I really appreciate that. We're going to swiftly move along, and we're going to introduce Andreas Hoshin, who's the Director of DAAD, London branch. I'm sure most of you have met him and spoken to him already today. He's been given strict warnings, 5 minutes.
Very much indeed, and I will make it in 3 minutes because that's means no disrespect. I have to catch a flight. but but first of all, I would like to thank the French embassy and the German embassy and the Irish partner for this terrific conference. It's been a great pleasure and inspiring to listen to the experiences of the participants of the European University Alliances. And the question for this final panel is the future vision. And I would like to pick up on something I heard right at the start of the conference, that it should be bottom up, what will lead us to the future of the alliances. And this is exactly the approach of the DED as a membership organization of German universities. And this March 25, we did a survey among the German participants of the European University Alliances, asking them about their perception of progress and challenges regarding the program. And I can report that the overall perception was quite well. We got the response that especially student mobility was seen as an area where huge improvements have been made, but also other areas like administrative mobility, cooperation between the partners, and the European degree and the legal status was welcomed in principle, especially with the European degree. There's an ongoing discussion regarding the specifics, but it was welcomed. There were two main areas where real challenges were highlighted in the survey. And this applies to joint PhD programs, where only few successful models seem to exist, and national regulation are often incompatible still. The other area was teaching staff mobility. And there, this is what we got from the survey, there are apparently inadequate incentives for teaching staff mobility if we want to achieve what the program is all about. So this is just what I can report from the German universities, but this is only one survey. I think this conference today also provided us with so much food for thought, and I will definitely report I have to report now a lot of things back to the DED office, and would like to thank all participants for providing me with so much input. Thank you so much, and have a nice ending of the conference. Bye.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm delighted to now introduce Sheena Duffy. And it would be remiss of me not to say at this point, Sheena, come on up. Sheena is Head of International Communications and EDI at the Higher Education Authority. Sheena is one of our biggest supporters and advocates, and I think without Sheena we would not have had, or today, over 10.38 national funding, 38 million in national funding. And just to say a big thank you to you. Over to you, Sheena.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking the IUA, TUA, French Embassy and the German Embassy for today's event. I think it's been really, really interesting and really valuable. I think it's been a fantastic opportunity for sharing experience amongst the alliances and for sharing best practice. Ireland is in a unique position. All of our universities are in an alliance, so we don't have that challenge that other European countries are facing in terms of a two-tier system. We're all part of alliances, so it just really shows the value that Ireland sees in these alliances. And it's also important that we continue to support these alliances as we move forward. The European universities are a key driver of long-term strategic collaboration, and that really aligns with the HEA's focus on internationalisation, strategic partnerships. It's also been called out within the Global Citizen Strategy, which is the international education and research strategy published by the department, which identifies a key action to support Irish HEIs to maximise opportunities for participation in the EU. And a lot of what's in that strategy has been called out today. But one of the things I just want to, we've talked a lot about mobility today. I think it's also important just for the European universities to point out how it really supports internationalisation at home. Only 20% of people are mobile across Europe. So you have 80% within our university structure that aren't mobile and are benefiting from an internationalisation experience, particularly through the European universities. From the discussion today, we can see that the alliances are all things to all people. Like, I mean, I've listed skills, diversity, belonging, joint degrees, research, micro-credentials, like the list goes on and on. We're talking about unprecedented levels of cooperation here. With that comes challenges, and obviously one of the big ones is that the scale of funding hasn't really been reflective of the ambition and has been augmented by national funding. Ireland, I can't take all credit, obviously the department provided the funding, has earlier people were talking about the flexibility that the national funding provides as opposed to maybe the more restrictive work package formula that's available. It's a view that was shared by the Commission earlier today that project-based funding is not in line with the Alliance's long-term strategic vision. It is one of the only initiatives that span a number of department or DGs, so it's across the European research area and the higher education area, and that doesn't really align with funding. So we really have to think about how we integrate funding and deliver a more sustainable solution to the alliances under the next programme. Finally, I'll talk about impact. At a session hosted by the Commission earlier this year, one of the panels I attended said that if the alliances were children, most of them wouldn't be in school yet. And I suppose that kind of resonated with me. Like we're asking a lot of institutions to outline impact quite early on. At the same time, though, the added value of these alliances has to be clear to the HEA, to the department, to Depender in order to really secure additional funding. So we still need to look at how we tell the story. Some of the early impacts coming through today were mutual learning from peers, the benefits of a network, pooling of resources. Like they're really early, tangible impacts that we can talk about. The contribution of the students earlier today really resonated with me, and just in terms of the impact for students. And I really think when we're looking at impact, it's really important that we capture the student voice. And I think when we're looking at the next iteration of the impact, we just have to see how the students can help us make that case. And finally, like we talked again a lot about shifting the culture within institutions around alliances, how they are now the lifeblood of institutions, that everything that the institutions do should be within the lens of the European University of Alliances. Again, we really need to see that message come through. We're delighted to see a number of presidents here today and vice presidents, but we need it at that top level. I know these are bottom up, but in terms of the importance, we really need that highlighted at a top level. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sheena, and thanks to all our speakers. And without any further delay, I am so delighted to welcome Minister James Lawless, TD, our Minister for Further Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science. And over to you, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I might be more than 3 minutes, but if anybody has to leave for a flight, that's okay. I won't take offence. Tróna wa Eve a corda, Bonjour à tous. Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren. Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm delighted to be able to join you today at this conference on the future of European Universities Alliances. I want to begin by acknowledging Her Excellency Ambassador Place of France, who I had the pleasure to meet the day she received her credentials in the RS Neutron also. Ambassador Gill, I know, has been at the conference most of the day, had to leave, and their teams, Fergus O'Barra from the European Parliament Liaison Office, the Irish Universities Association, the Technological Universities Association, and all my friends and colleagues and stakeholders that I'm getting to know very well over the last few months, many of you are being in the room today. And well done to all of you for the collaboration, work and effort that went into making today happen. I listened with interest to the, actually I was delighted with the schedule, the way it facilitated the wrap-up session. So even I knew I could never be here for the day, unfortunately, but it facilitated me being able to hear the outputs of your dialogues and conversations. So Aist, August Lowert, I was able to listen as well as hear, and as we tell our children, but sometimes we forget ourselves, well I do anyway, we have one mouth but two ears. So it is very important that we actually take on board, and as a new minister, it's really important to me to hear my stakeholders, hear the sector that I represent, that I'm proud to represent, and hear what you have to say, and try to then act on that and make that follow through into policy making. So I want to touch on a few things today in my contribution. The significance of the European University Alliances, the importance of European collaboration in light of my four ministerial priorities, which I will share with you in the course of my closing remarks. And of course, looking to our European presidency coming hot on the heels next year in July, and Ireland's role in that and how we can help facilitate and drive on these discussions as we take the helm for that important period. So the idea of creating transnational European university networks has its origins in the Sorbonne speech delivered by President Emmanuel Macron in September 2017. And in that speech, President Macron called for the creation of at least 20 European universities by 2024, networks that would enable European students to study across European countries and in multiple languages, cultivating a new generation with a deeply European identity, an identity that I'm very proud to share. And ever since I've held any kind of public office, I've had the tricolour along with the European flags behind my desk, and always will do so because I'm a very proud European, and that is such an important part of all of our shared identities. But President Macron framed this discussion, this dialogue, as being essential not just to education, but also to the sovereignty, the cultural richness and the democratic legitimacy of Europe itself. So before looking ahead, I want to acknowledge first what the European University Alliances have already achieved, because President Macron's call back in 2017 has become very much a reality, and those 20 initial aspirations that 20 institutions may take part has now stemmed to 570 institutions with over 65 alliances across them, representing one of the most tangible legacies of that bold vision for European renewal. So since the official launch in 2019, these alliances have transformed the landscape of European higher education, and that's testament to all of you in the room and all the networks that you collaborate with, and thanks to all involved to bring that to life. And I think that's quite a projection to go from 20 at concept to 570 and counting today in the space of a short few years. So well done, I think, to all involved. These networks and the projects are a flagstone of our wider work on the European education area, and programmes like Erasmus Plus continue to highlight the best of our European shared values, and that of course is one of the most recognisable instruments. And I listened with a great interest to, I think it was the final speaker talking about the panel for students and the student experience, and for some students it may be their first opportunity to travel abroad, to have a European encounter, or indeed any encounter outside the familiar surroundings of home. So I think it is quite important that we recognise the barriers, the obstacles, but also the huge opportunities that these kind of schemes represent, and not underestimate those, because they can be seismic in many young persons' lives. And each alliance, of course, is also distinct. This is their strength. I flicked through the briefing material over the course of the weekend, and I was struck by, I suppose, the depth and breadth of the alliances and how each one has a different focus and each one has different constituents, but really as a tapestry they all weave into a wonderful framework carpet for the European universities, and that's again an incredible achievement. and all working with the same aims to deepen strategic cooperation between European higher education institutions. And not just on an academic front, although of course that is critical, and I think the first speaker talk about academic excellence, and that is so important, something that I will strive for always as well and support. But also societally, strategically, and in a deeply European context. So the networks bring together diverse institutions tackling global challenges, but shared challenges, fostering mobility, deepening research collaboration, and developing the next generation of multilingual, multidisciplinary Europeans. And all of this is, amongst being very worthwhile in its own right as an endeavour, it also helps to ensure Europe's competitiveness is as strong and as robust as can be. And I heard mention of Letta report and Draghi report, etc., again in the post-panel discussions there. So I think this is such an important part of our competitiveness package. And I was in Brussels just last week at the European Council, and again all these themes of the importance of research, higher education, skills to our competitiveness offering. It is so critical and fundamental to everything that we must do in that regard also. So the alliances, by their nature, support and equip students and academics as they pursue deep expertise in their fields, with that collaborative and adaptive mindset critical to succeed in a globalised world. Adaptive is so important because the only constant in life is change. And the species that fails to adapt, Darwin often spoke about, I think one of his central tenets was that the species that survives is not necessarily the strongest, not necessarily the fastest, but the one that is most adaptable to change. And we must adapt and change constantly if we are to succeed in a changing world. So we have to be in Ireland and in Europe. We know that we're in changing geopolitical tides, and again, that was referenced in the panel discussions. So we must in Europe stand proud, stand tall, and be at the forefront of knowledge creation and the knowledge economy. And through mechanisms such as these alliances, we are well placed to do so. So all three countries, the three countries making up the discussions primarily today, have an impressive level of involvement in the alliances. France, I understand, has 64 institutions involved. Germany has 67, and all 14 Irish universities are involved also. This is an impressive number for a country of our size. So a clean sweep for Ireland, all on board. And I'm delighted to see that that is indeed the case. If I look at one example, I'm going to take EU Green Alliance. We have ATU, Atlantic Technological University, University d'Angers, France, and Universität Otto von Guericke Magdeburg in Germany, all of which are represented here today. That is an alliance driving forward collaboration, mutual learning across regionally anchored institutions, focused on sustainability and responsible growth, and with a global mindset. And that is exactly the kind of vehicle that Europe needs. It reflects a partnership of regional strength, global awareness, and sustainable ambition. And fundamentally, it allows good ideas to germinate and cross-pollinate. And we must continue to support these efforts, and we will. Close to €1 billion has been committed under Erasmus Plus since 2021. In Ireland, at the end of 2024, we augmented that support with a further 2.7 million of national co-funding. And as we look to the next EU budget cycle, which was the primary focus of my discussions in Brussels last Thursday and Friday, it is expected that a more long-term European Universities Alliance funding model will be actively considered, and I will certainly be supporting those efforts. I recently addressed the Irish Universities Association at their Future of Ireland event, and I want to thank them for giving me that platform. And on that occasion, I outlined my 4 strategic priorities as Minister in this sector. Number 1 is to champion research and innovation as a key economic enabler. When speaking with my European colleagues in Brussels last week, I shared a simple but a personal analogy. In my spare time, which is very limited and rare these days, I am a gardener, very amateur, a few potatoes, a few seeds, a few vegetables, a few chickens, and lots of plants and perennials and flowers and herbs. But the magic of gardening is that you never actually know, particularly in my case, perhaps I'm too amateur, what's going to work and what isn't. And you sow the seeds every spring and you pollinate the garden, and then you watch the fruits of your labour. Some will flourish, some will grow tall and present beautifully over the summer months, some will fall away. And that is the exact same as a research project, because you plant the seeds, you must plant multiple of them, and then you stand back and see with the right nourishment and encouragement, some will flourish, some will come to fruition, and others may not. And that is, but if you do not plant you will not have any harvest. So I actually shared that with colleagues, other ministers from around Europe, and had to say it took great, I think the room took great interest, and it certainly became a metaphor that we used later in the day over the course of discussions. But that is the exact same way that research works, because not every project will bear fruit, not every idea will come good, but the ecosystem that we create in doing so is so important. If we don't have the garden tilled in the first place, if we don't have the ecosystem there, if we're not watering it, if we're not supplanting it and minding it, that long-term cultivation of talent, and indeed risk-taking. Because as we plant those seeds, we know in full knowledge, not every one of these seeds is going to grow and flourish and come to maturity. But that is what we do. We create, we take risks, we see some succeed, we see some fail, and we try again. And that's a resilient and an innovative society. And it's one that we're investing in today, and also looking at the breakthroughs of tomorrow, which we may not know exactly what they are just yet. In Budget 25, we've committed 309 million through Research Ireland. We will continue to strengthen our research base, renew infrastructure, target excellence to drive impact across all disciplines, and I intend to launch further research vehicles and initiatives to support our research infrastructure capacity, backed by significant funding to drive that on further. My second priority is to deliver high quality, highly accessible higher education. So that includes things like levering the National Training Fund, expanding supports for students most in need to make sure that everybody can attend college and not have financial barriers as an impediment, but in a targeted, progressive, fair way, and ensuring strong institutional governance across the system. And I completely agree, as I heard in the panel discussions a few moments ago, the need for a sustainable funding model. That's why in my first 3 months in office, I've already secured Cabinet approval to unlock the National Training Fund, to pledge 150 million extra per annum into the higher education sector, and there's plenty more that I intend to do towards that. The third priority I set out is to widen learning pathways through skilling, reskilling and apprenticeships. And by leading out on that strategic tertiary education model, I want to ensure Ireland's dynamic labour market and evolving workforce needs are being met. I listened to, actually, I think there was a discussion about skills needs, and the context of the union of skills discussion, skills for employers, skills for employees, and then how the university and education system can help to bridge those gaps and actually look at the longer term. So again, I take away many interesting ideas from those discussions. The final priority I've set out is perhaps a little bit of a wild card, but I think it's fundamental, is to promote curiosity and the pursuit of knowledge as a public good. Study is worthwhile in its own right. My responsibility to today's learners is to ensure they are equipped for tomorrow's jobs and tomorrow's challenges, personal and professional, and that we are training people how to think. What they think is up to them. Academic freedom and academic integrity is fundamental, but we give people a skill set that they can apply howsoever they choose. And innovation is fueled by creativity. The ability to learn and traversal our human skills like cultural, multicultural awareness are arguably now the most important skills of all. And like the garden, we don't necessarily know what's going to bear fruit, but we know if we create the right systems, create the right environment, have the right weather, we can be lucky, and we can be extremely lucky. And that is the environment. If we create the right educational ecosystem, supported through research funding, and bring people together and allow them to blossom, we will reap, I think, great rewards. So the alliances, I think, are critical vehicles for the four priorities I set out and the work that I wish to do in the coming months and years, as long as I'm privileged to hold this position. And I intend to work hand in glove with the university sector and with our European partners. As part of our Global Citizens 2030 International Talent and Innovation Strategy, this is core to that work, and that is taking shape. I mentioned the Research and Innovation Council I attended last week in Brussels, and our desire to see a strong FP10, a further horizon funding call, and one that is standalone, and one that is, and I was proud to reaffirm our commitment to partnership and excellence, and I will continue to strive towards that in all my European Council dealings. I just want to briefly mention the EU presidency, which I mentioned is coming to us soon, just a year away almost now. And Ireland, like our partners here today, France and Germany, are strong EU believers and strong participants. And we believe that the values and the work that we do as EU partners is more important now than ever. We work through extreme geopolitical upheaval. You have to check your phone every half an hour to see what the latest developments are internationally. That's certainly something new, and it's not welcome change, but it's change we must manage. But we face direct confrontations to our tried and tested means for multilateral cooperation of a kind we haven't seen since World War II. And I believe in the multilateral system. I believe in the Comity of Nations. I believe in international partnership and collaboration. And I worry about the direction that some of our erstwhile partners are taking. But Ireland will have the opportunity. We hold the EU presidency from July to December 2026, and it is a responsibility we'll take very seriously and will be highly engaged in. We hope to, during that presidency, shape negotiations on the next EU budget to define the successive frameworks to Horizon Europe, Erasmus Plus, along with many other related initiatives. And at this time of geopolitical and geoeconomic turbulence, we believe Europe must invest in what makes it strong. That is its people, its knowledge, its ability to work together, because our talent is our greatest natural asset, and that our talent is our people, and it's latent, and our job as educators is to nourish that and bring it out. And the European project has also always been about peace and about people. Research, innovation, education and skills are central to that, vital to our investing in our people, and we will champion these areas through our EU presidency. With academics being in the business of understanding, they have always understood that their role in maintaining and making peace is strong. And as Albert Einstein famously said, peace cannot be maintained by force, it must be achieved by understanding. And understanding is one thing we should strive to do well. We will work across government with the Commission and with the Member States to ensure a presidency that focuses on key priorities for Europe. We will do so while listening to partners, learning from peers, and contributing Ireland's voice to a more resilient, competitive and inclusive Europe. And I and my officials will be stepping up our engagement with our European partners more and more coming in towards July 26, and I look forward to engaging with you on all of those themes. In closing, I want to congratulate you again on today's conference. The alliances are a counterweight to fragmentation. They foster mutual respect, openness and shared ambition. They are spaces where innovation takes root and where cultural and intellectual exchange delivers lasting value. They are an excellent and welcome counterpoint to other events we see worldwide. Our three countries in particular today share a deep commitment to academic freedom and the societal role of research and innovation. President Macron reminded us in his second Sorbonne speech, l'Europe est une civilisation avant d'être un marché. Europe is a civilization before it is a market. And Germany's long-standing commitment to Wissenschaft Freiheit, the freedom of science, has consistently underscored the value of open, well-funded and collaborative knowledge systems. President Steinmeier put it clearly, Wissenschaft braucht Freiheit und die Gesellschaft braucht dann Wissenschaft. Science needs freedom and society needs science. As we say in Ireland, ní cearta chuirde céile. Greibh maith guibh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your remarks. Thank you. Thank you. As we conclude this conference, I would. Sorry, I'm a bit.
It's okay. Delphine, can we just say thank you? A huge thank you to Delphine, first of all, who has been the instigator of this event, but also I guess, was the instrumental in our first inaugural meeting of the EUI Forum a couple of years ago in the IUA. And if it wasn't for Delphine, we wouldn't have so much collaboration in this event. She's put her heart and soul into this. We're losing Delphine. She's going back to France in the summer. And I just wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of all of us here to say thank you. We'll have plenty more. I left you standing there for a second. So we just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's come today, participated, moderated, rapporteured. I'm so sorry, rapporteurs, that wasn't fair. You had so little time to say so very much, but we will capture it in our conference paper. Thank you to everyone that facilitated the discussions today. Huge thanks again to Delphine, Ambassador, and also Clement and Amelie, and happy birthday, Clement, who had to work on his birthday. And I'm so glad, Fergus, you're back in the room, just to say thank you for allowing us to have our event here in this beautiful building, access to the fantastic rooms and the space, and for being so patient and kind with us. We just say thank you. I'm sure you'll have lots of calls now in your inbox to highlight the room. So we're just going to close now. I hope all of you who have just have a safe journey home. I hope some of you get to still stay in Dublin. The sun has been shining a little bit on and off today. And to all of you who joined us online, we will be sending out some pictures and some key feedback from today. As I said, we'll look for your input. But thank you so much and take care.
Thank you. I just want to add that we have created a form to get your input on the day. So yeah, we would greatly appreciate if you could take a few minutes to respond. We also in this forum ask for your vision and your for your alliance in towards 2030 and a bit of thoughts. So it might take more than 5 minutes, actually. And to finish, there is a short cultural visit planned for those who registered. It starts from here at 5. We'll end up in a pub, obviously, at 6:30 at the Palace Bar, I think, if other people want to join as well. So. Safe travels for our French and German partners, and it was great to have you all here today.